I found this little wooden bunk ladder and it's going to be an upcycle that I've been wanting to do forever. Welcome to my channel, I'm Alana from Upcycling NZ. Let's get into what we'll do to this. I'm taking some rope and a drill bit to the size of the rope. I'm going to hang this ladder, so I'm drilling 2 holes in the top. I could tell as I'm drilling this from the smell and from the colour of the wood shavings that this is a hardwood. So this ladder's going to last a good long time when I'm finished with it. This is also an indicator of the colour of the wood once I stain it. It should come up quite nice and dark and show that wood grain. So at the moment I'm just going to size up the rope to get a general idea of how long I want the rope to hang. Then I'll remove it so that I can carry on with the next step. The ladder itself is quite plain, so I'm going to decoupage some music paper to the sides of the ladder. I use music paper all the time in my crafting, apologies for that, but I love the look. I'm just going to rip these in half and do them on slight angles, so I don't want everything straight up and down. I'm using a PVA wood glue to secure the paper down and spreading a nice even thick layer. The raw wood tends to soak a lot of the glue up, so you want to make sure you have a lot of glue. I'm just going to rip that straight edge. I don't want any straight edges left, and I can leave the overlaps on that for now. I'm just making sure I glue where the joins are between the pieces of paper. Then I'm smoothing out any air bubbles with a flat palette knife. I'll continue this off camera and do both sides of the ladder. Once that's dry, I'm taking 120 grit sandpaper on a block and I'm sanding downwards to remove that paper from the edges. This process didn't take long after I'd had this drying out in the sun. I wanted to get this project finished today. I'm taking some antiquing wax and I've already mixed a bit up. I had to come back and film this bit again, but I'll show you the quantity that you'd need. I'm just putting that much in and I'll add some more water to that. And I've doubled that mixture with that amount of antiquing wax. So when I sponged it on, it's giving me the colour I wanted, but what I didn't expect was that it actually started soaking into a whole lot of places where there was not glue, and the glue stayed a bit whiter, and it was exactly the effect I was looking for. So that saved me about an hour of trying to achieve that effect by mucking around with it. To seal this, I'm going to use a coffee stain, which was a remnant from the dump store that I collect a lot of stuff from. It's an aqua epoxy and I've mixed it 50-50 with water. It's quite a yellow look to it, but I tested it on a piece of wood and it worked. So I'm just applying the stain all over the wood. Look at that beautiful wood grain coming out. This is kind of buttery texture and kind of the consistency of honey. It adds just a nice sepia tone to the music paper as well. So once that's dry, all that's left to do is to punch a hole back through where the hole was drilled and re-thread my rope back through. This is turning out exactly how I wanted it to. So before I reveal the finished ladder to you, I'm going to make a few things to add to it to style the ladder up. First thing I'm going to need is a wreath. So I'm taking this old tray that I salvaged from the dump and I'm painting it in a vintage green chalk paint. Given this 2 really good coats. If you're still with me, I'm so glad you've joined me because this was one of my best flips ever, and I hope you can get some inspiration from it. So as soon as the green was dry, I took some black chalk paint and I'm painting the rim in black. This black chalk paint dries really matte, so it's going to complement that green. chalk paint's great. It sticks to most surfaces. It has a really opaque finish, so you get some nice depth of colour with it. It doesn't have a built-in sealer though, so it will require sealing at the end. I'm cutting out some scrap paper into some rounds, and I've got all of these brown paper bags that have been stored in my drawers, so I've pulled them all out, and I'm just twisting the bottom around and around in my hand to create a rose shape, which I'll then hot glue the little rounds to the back of and pinch them closed as they're setting up. And you get these lovely rose shapes. If you have printed bags like this one, just turn them inside out and carry on. So I think I have enough of the brown paper ones, but I thought this might work with paper as well. In theory it should, so I'm just cutting some more paper rounds and rounding off some square paper. It was a bit harder to twist this one, but it did work with a little bit of manipulation. So these are going to make little smaller roses. I'm using music paper to echo the look of the ladder. I love that this project allowed me to use a lot of recycled materials and stuff that would otherwise have gone to waste or been thrown away. I'm taking some rose pink chalk paint that I got from Kmart. I get all my chalk paints from Kmart, and I'm dabbing that on the front of the brown paper bag roses. I really misjudged this colour. I thought it was a yellowy pink, but it's actually more of a mauve. And now that I've used it, I think it's absolutely gorgeous. I'll drill a hole in top of the tin tray so I can hang it. And I'll just use a piece of twine for that. Threading the double end through and tying a knot. I'll do one above and below the rim of the tin. Going back to the chalk paint, I get them super cheap on special, $4 for the pink, which I think is really good quality too. And they have smaller 50ml pots sometimes for $1. I'm just hot gluing that down at the top so it's nice and secure, and I'll start to glue these paper roses around the outside. I demonstrated in an earlier video one of the 50ml pots of that paint and just how far it stretches, and you can get dozens of projects out of these little pots from Kmart. I have a little black and white print, and this has just come from an adult colouring book. And I want to age its appearance, so I'm taking some antiquing wax and I've watered some down on a sponge, and I'll just wipe that across the surface to colour that up a little bit. And then I'll use some more concentrated antiquing wax to go around the edges of that print. I'm so excited about this wreath because I can tell it's just going to go really well with that ladder. I'll put a bit of antiquing wax around the inside of the roses as well and just feather that out a little. I'm using PVA glue to decoupage that print down. You could use Mod Podge or even a glue stick if you needed to. I'm pushing out any air bubbles with my paintbrush and painting glue all over the surface. When it's dry, I'm going to need to seal it, so I'm using Rust-Oleum Clear Coat in a matte finish, and that will give those roses a nice hardness about them, and they'll be able to be dusted easy. Now I can set that aside and get on with the next project. This deep frame was another dump store find. I'm just giving it a clean. It's nice and deep and it stands up on its side on its own. So I'll take out the glass and the insert and mask off the black. I want to keep that black in a frame. You can use any deep frame for this as long as the glass is at the front. This project's a really easy one and it was very fast. I'm taking some antiquing wax and I'm going to use it as a stain on that wood. It's very blonde and very bare. I've watered the wax down by about half and I'll just apply it all over the frame. Not on the very bottom, but I'll do the edges around the front of the frame as well. I'll let that soak into the wood for a few minutes before I buff it off again. And if you want it a little bit darker, just go back and apply more wax. Wait a bit longer and then buff it off. I'm just using a paper towel for that. So that's given this frame some nice colour, and the tone will match my ladder better. Now I'm going to take 4 pages of music paper again, and I'm going to cut it down so that they fit sideways into that frame. And very simply, I'm just going to roll those up and space them out evenly across the frame. When I'm happy with their position, I'm just going to put a fine line of hot glue across to secure the end of those pages down. I really want to age these scrolls, so I'm taking them out and I'm marking where the glass is on them. I'll use watered down antiquing wax again to age the edges, just on a wet sponge. Oh, that's going to look so good. I'll complete all 4, and then I'm going to tie a little piece of twine around each of those, just with a knot. So if you've stuck with me this far through the video, consider whether you think I deserve a like or not. That'll help me greatly in advancing my channel. So I've got all 4 finished. I'll pop the glass back in. I'm going to take the sticker off the backing. I'm not going to need the backing now, so I'm going to put that aside for my next project. Now just pop the scrolls into the frame so that the view from the front is how you like. And I love that look. Simple but really effective. I'm going to back it with some of the cardboard from the front of the music book, which is a beautiful colour. And I'll just cut that to size, and I'm going to hot glue that onto the back. But before I do, I'm just going to take a little piece of twine and I'm going to create a hanger for the back of the frame, just in case I do choose to hang it later on. And I'll hot glue that below the rim there. That way the backing will sit nice and flat and the loop will just be exposed at the top. So it looks so good on a bookshelf, or if you're lucky enough to have a library in your house. I think this is so cool. It's the sort of thing I was right into when I was a little kid. Secret scrolls. Just going to create a little finger bow to go on the outside by winding that around my fingers several times and tying the centre off. And just hot gluing that directly to the outside of the frame. Please tell me in the comments what you think of this. I think you could also have done this with little tiny scrolls. I think it's very unique and interesting. So as I said, I didn't want to throw away the backing for the glass, so I'm going to cut this into 3 even strips. It's made of particle board and it's quite thin. So I'll just score it with a standing knife and snap it. I recommend sanding the edges, however I scraped some of them clean with my standing knife. Then I took scissors and curved the corners. So while I'm sanding these, I just want to tell you about the fact that I have just about reached a milestone of 50,000 views on my channel, which is a big one for me. I'm a relatively new channel, so I'm a bit excited about that, and I'm hoping this video gets me there. We are very close. I'm just punching holes in those now, and I'll clean the holes up with some sandpaper. I'm going to paint these in a chalk paint called Sage, and I'll give these one messy coat. When I say messy, I mean that it doesn't really matter if you miss little spots, because I'm going to be distressing them back anyway. Then I'm taking some black chalk paint on a glass panel, and I've got 3 floral stamps here. I'm going to ink those up, clean the edges, and put a different flower on each of these. Making these tags is so much fun to do. I could do these all day. So a little tip when you're using stamps is that you always clean them off when you've completed your project with them. Now that they're dry, I just want to cover them with masking tape, and I run them across my jersey first, those pieces of masking tape, so that when you lift them they don't take any of the paint with them. So then I've got a writing stamp, which is just some beautiful detailed writing, and I'll just clean the edges and stamp each of those. I'm not too worried if the stamp fades in places, it's all going to add to the look. So they're looking pretty cute now. I've removed the masking tape. On the back of these I'm going to draw a few lines with my black paint pen. It's acrylic paint. And I'll do 2 on this one, 3 on the next one, and 4 on the next one. That's just so that they can be used as gift tags and people can select how much writing they want to put on each. I'll use twine to tie these tags, and I'm going to make some little lace finger bows with some narrow lace that I had. Wrap it around your fingers a few times and tie off the centre. So I'll just make a loop in the twine and thread that through the hole, and then thread the ends through the loop. I think that's called a lark's head knot. And tie off the end. Then I'm going to take some antiquing wax again, and I'm going to age these. This is where that messy coat of paint comes in handy, because the antiquing wax soaks into the raw wood and gives a different effect from what it looks like on the paint. So if I'm able to reach that 50,000 views from this video, I'll have to thank everybody who's been supporting my channel. A lot of you are there viewing my videos every week. I post every week on my channel, and I'm so humbled and grateful for that. These look so cute. Tell me what you think in the comments. I've just got to seal that chalk paint in, and I'm just using a clear wax, and I use a shaving brush to apply this. Works really well. Once that's on, I leave it for a few minutes and just buff off with a paper towel. For the next project I got these 3 little jars, and I always look for ones with that raised advertising on the jar. I'm going to use that rose pink chalk paint again now that I'm really loving that colour, and I'll put a good coat just from the rim down. You might have seen the horrible wart that I'm trying to get rid of on my finger there. It's got a band-aid on it now. I'm trying for about the 5th time applying wart remover to get rid of that, so apologies for the look of it. So I'm finishing up with about 2.5 coats it took to cover these. Then I'm going to paint the lids in a chalk black, and one of the lids is just the rim, and I want to leave that jar open at the top. So my very good friend Michelle was honest and told me that she loved my videos, but I needed to get rid of the wart on my hand. If you guys know of a better product, I've been using Duofilm. Let me know in the comments. So now they've had time to dry, I'm going to take some sandpaper, and it's a quite fine grit, and I'm just going to start to remove the paint on the raised areas around the jar and distress that. This was pretty hard to remove from these jars. I'll distress the lid as well, so I'm pretty happy with how that paint is stuck to these. These just need a little something extra, so I'm going to wind some twine around the rim there a few times and tie it off in a little bow. I always burn off the loose fibres from your twine to give it a tidier appearance. I'll just hot glue those little bows into position and use clear wax again to seal these jars. They are finished after this step, but I'm going to add some antiquing wax so that it ties in with my ladder display. I've been pretty focused on trying to make my commentary a little bit more interesting. I love watching the crafting videos with that lovely American accent where they say, "I just love that, y'all." My cousin Christy and my daughter Tegan and I were riding through the Arizona desert, and we had this guide that we just fell in love with called Gabriel, and he talked in this long, slow cowboy drawl and said things like Jiminy Crickets. That's probably a terrible interpretation of his accent. So the little jars are finished, and now I'm going to take 3 colours of chalk paint. I've got the vintage green, the rose pink and the sage, and I'm going to paint these little egg cups, these little wooden egg cups, and I'll just do a messy coat and I'll paint each of the 3 a different colour. If you're enjoying my content, hit that subscribe button and you will get notifications every time I post a video. And as you can tell from my name, Upcycling New Zealand, I'm big on reusing, recycling and reducing waste. I've just given these all a sand to distress them, and I'll add some twine around the bottom of these. I've just started these off with a little bit of hot glue, wound it around the bottom several times, and I'll just trim that and hot glue and tuck away the end. To finish these off, I'm just going to burn off the loose fibres, give them a clear wax and buff off the excess. Now that these are finished, I can display that ladder for you.